So good evening, welcome back. Thanks for coming again, and thank you to Anselm and the rest of the team, Bernd and et al. So for the past 3 years, my group at Bard has been involved in a very intense collaboration with the Forensic Architecture Research Team at Goldsmiths College in London. The results of their conceptual, creative, and investigative work are visible and audible now in this building, in the comprehensive exhibition called Forensis, and in the book of the same title, published by Sternberg Press. The exhibition presents a series of experiments and experiences with evidence, and in particular, evidence of war crimes, human rights violations, and environmental injustice. It tells the story of the quiet but massive emergence of material evidence in the juridical and political field. For many years, our culture has been fascinated by the figure of the witness, the victim or the onlooker who survives to tell the story of what has happened, to bear witness or to testify, to make claims and document events based on the experiences that he or she has undergone. But while our eyes and ears have been fixed on the words of the witness, another sort of evidentiary discourse has simultaneously been growing and even proliferating, that of objects, things, bodies, machines, and numbers. In the exhibition, we call this discourse forensis, not only in order to refer to the popular representations of science in the service of crime scene investigation, but more importantly, to name this eruption into the field of law, ethics, and politics of a rich and voluble world of traces, remains, ruins, remnants, documents, recordings. For it turns out we live in a world of censors. If every contact leaves a trace, in Locard's famous phrase, we can now see that those traces are inscribed in everything from flesh and bones to streets and buildings, including, most obviously, the vast array of analog and digital recording devices that populate our land and seas and skies. Today, the evidence collected, whether intentionally or inadvertently, in the course of these contacts constitutes a rich new archive for making claims and pursuing justice. We do not have to leave forensics to the state and to the police, however much they seek to monopolize it. This exhibition documents a wealth of operations and claims that can be made, enlisting the evidence of things as varied as rocks and bones on the one hand, to satellite-based imaging sensors on the other, in the service of human rights and environmental justice. And they're not the same old claims. With new forms of evidence come new forums for its presentation, and likewise, new agents and protagonists of these claims can emerge as well. Today, the natural world, from the ice caps to the atmosphere, increasingly count and have to be counted in our deliberations about rights and justice. For when human beings are no longer the only actors on the scene of rights, the very limits and definition of human rights must be expanded and transformed. What we sometimes too easily call human rights, as if we know what they are, today names a space in contest and transformation. And that brings us to our conversation this evening. No one, I think it's safe to say, has had a better vantage point on the emergence of forensics in international justice, and indeed on the emergence of international criminal justice itself, than Luis Moreno Ocampo. Born in Buenos Aires, he has had a rich career as a lawyer, human rights and anti-corruption advocate, author of a number of books, and professor. But most famously, he has been a prosecutor. And almost 30 years ago, and that's the picture, in the spring and summer of 1985, as the deputy prosecutor in the so-called trial of the juntas in Argentina, he presided over the introduction of evidence from the world's first ever human rights forensic anthropology team. Now you can show the next one. He's running my slides too.
Yeah, I got the job. I'm very honored.
Clyde Snow, the American forensics expert who taught the group of young Argentine students how to exhume graves and interpret the skeletons of the disappeared, presented the evidence they had unearthed. Next one. In a series of slides, he narrated the process that led from the discovery of the shattered fragments of bones to the reconstitution of a skull to the identification of that skull as that of Liliana Pereira, one of the thousands of students and activists and bystanders kidnapped and killed in the Dirty War. This restoration of the name and face of the otherwise anonymous victims of persecution was not only an exemplary ethical act, and not only a revolutionary innovation in the deployment of scientific knowledge for the pursuit of human rights. It was also a crucial piece of evidence, and of a new kind. Henceforth, war criminals and dictators would have to fear not only the documents they left behind and the testimony of their victims, but a world of things and traces, even the bodies of those they had killed. But those things do not speak for themselves. They need spokespeople and ventriloquists. And throughout his career, Ocampo has been an eloquent advocate for human rights and justice, and likewise for the deployment of new kinds of evidence in human rights prosecutions. As the first prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, a position for which he was unanimously chosen in 2003, he not only effectively created an institution, but then led a series of precedent-setting investigations and brought cases against a sizable number of militia leaders and even sitting heads of state. And although he sometimes worried out loud that the court's investigations were hindered by the absence of the latest forensic tools, he in fact pioneered the use of all sorts of new objects and technologies, from epidemiological surveys and statistics to digital video footage to satellite imagery and computer-generated maps. Not without controversy, of course, and tonight we'll no doubt explore some of those controversies. But we'll focus on the evidence, on the development and production of evidence, and on forensics in human rights today. Ocampo once suggested, perhaps in an exaggeration, but nonetheless a telling one, that he dreamt of a case without witnesses. One of our goals, he told a conference of social scientists, is a case with no witnesses, no victims. We want to use methods that you are developing, such as statistical analysis. We must refine how you use your tools. In the shadow of this gradual disappearance of the witness, we'll talk tonight about science and social science, about politics and law, and about the different ways people and things can serve as witnesses. Joining us to lead the conversation with Luis Moreno Ocampo is Brenna Bhandar. A lawyer and scholar and activist, she teaches in the School of Law at SOAS in London, where she's affiliated with the Center for the Study of Colonialism, Empire, and International Law. Her research interests range from property law to multiculturalism to post-colonial and feminist legal theory, and she has written importantly on indigenous rights and in particular land claims by indigenous people. It's a great pleasure for me to share the stage with both of them. Please join me in welcoming them here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for this kind introduction and also for using Clyde Snow, because I think the presence of Clyde Snow in our court in 1985, I'm sorry, I'm going here, it was a crucial day for us, because in one way, we're trying to show to the judges what happened in real life, what happened with the victims. He was the first witness to talk about exactly what happened with the victims. Before him were 3 days of the former president of the country and some ministers all talking about political issues. He put real life into the courtroom and showed his technical skills to explain to the judges what happened. And that was exactly what we had to do to win the case in court. But in addition to that, we had to win the case outside the court, to normal people. My mother, for instance, was unhappy with me. She was thinking I was wrong conducting the investigation. She loved General Videla, the former dictator, because she was feeling that he was protecting us from the guerrilla. She was thinking he was like my grandfather was a general too, so she loved generals in general terms. And yes. So for me, I always think, okay, I had two fronts. One, evidence to convince the judges, but also I need evidence to explain to my mother that I'm right. I could not convince her. So Clive Snow help us in both sides, before the judges and before people like my mother. And after, when I was appointed chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, I always remember this tension. And in fact, was much more complicated, my work, than in Argentina, because there were many constituencies around me with different ideas. For instance, the law, we were discussing with Brenna before we came, the meaning of law. And lawyers fight between them about what is law and how law in my country, in your country, each of them believe they are right. And just an example I gave to her, the first chief prosecutor of the Yugoslavia Tribunal told me the following story. One day, he was in his office, and three of his lawyers came furious between them. The American lawyer was saying, I cannot work here. This place is not professional. In 2 weeks, we have a witness. And I told them, we had to prepare the witness, and they refused. It's not professional. I cannot work here. The British lawyer explained immediately, look, I'm a barrister in London. If I interview a witness, I will be disbarred. I cannot be disbarred to work here. And the Scottish lawyer say, in Scotland, prepare a witness is a crime. I cannot commit a crime to work here. So this is just the lawyers. And normally we believe Scottish, British, and Americans are same tradition. Imagine. Multiply this for French and other lawyers around the world. So part of my work too was to put together my lawyers. I lost in this battle, but in any case, we had the lawyers discussing their own views. But because I'm Argentinian, I also saw a different aspect of the law. In my country, if you were abducted secretly, they can kill you. If you were officially arrested, they were not killing you. So it's a huge difference. Everyone was dreaming to be officially arrested. Then you are not killed. But this, in thinking law, is a completely different meaning. Law is not about interpretations. It's basic. It's about life or death. That's it. It's completely different. And in addition to that, I was thinking, okay, I'm in Berlin. I was shocked that, I'm not sure if you understand how unique it is. In Berlin, you can go to the subway and take the train, and there are no machines controlling you. You just go there. And you pay the ticket because normally you pay the ticket. Eventually, sometimes there are some random inspection, but you pay the ticket. I have in my office, at the prosecutor office, I had two lawyers, one German, one French. They were in Brussels, going late to the meeting. So they went to the subway, and the train was coming, and the French lady was saying, come on, the train is coming. No, we cannot take the train. Why not? The ticket office is closed. So she said, no, come on, we take the train, and then we pay later. The German guy was resisting. Because in Germany, you follow the law. The rule is normal. So you go, more or less. Okay, go to Argentina, come back, and then you see the difference, okay? Okay. But then, so for you the law, you're not thinking the law. You just pay the ticket and you go. You're not thinking the law. And that's it for me, the issue. How can explain the law to normal people? And just to make show another angle of this, the meaning of the law, is I remember after this case, I was involved in some rebellion case. And in one of them, one rebel coroner, at the end, when he was making his final speech, he said, "Your Honors, I'm ready to offer my life for my land. I cannot offer my life for the Constitution. First, the Constitution is changing. The politician can change the Constitution tomorrow, and then I gave my life for nothing. And second, the Constitution is abstract. It's nothing that is compelling me." And he concluded, "Offer my life for the Constitution is like offer my life for the decimal metrical system." And I found he's right. The law is a decimal metrical system. The law is a process. The law is the way you have to be respected. The police arrest you. The law is the way defining how you vote. The law is the way the politician you elect make decisions. So the law is a process. And it's difficult to get empathy with the law. And the issue is, all this introduction is to say, in the national settings, we follow the law. And if someone killed the husband, no one is challenging the police will investigate. No one is challenging the prosecutor will present a case, and the judge will decide. That is normal. No mayor, no congressman will interfere. No one will talk about respect the cultural differences or whatever. No, the process is clear. This process does not exist at the international level. And that is my point. My point is, what we believe is normal in the national setting does not exist at the international level. However, in particular, the young generation, those who born at the end or growing after the end of the Cold War and are used to have cell phones and internet, for them the world is one. And they expect to be respected and treated well around the world. They expect some basic global standards. They expect will be some global standard that the global community will enforce. And that is not existing. That is new. That is something we have to learn. And that's why I'm very glad to be here. Because for me, my main idea today is trying to learn from you how we can explain better this idea. That's why I traveled from Buenos Aires yesterday, because I like to understand, and it's not just with the people who are organizing the forensic conference, people like you here, I like to discuss with you how we can present this basic idea in a basic way, that people like you can get it. Stop here?
Sure, I'm happy to.
No, I have
some questions.
Okay. In fact, it was an introduction, nothing. Give me 10 minutes.
Okay.
Because I.
That's fine. We have 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. This guy. He was 17. Herschel Greenspan. You know who is him? In 1938, Hitler decided to expel the Jewish from Polish origin. 12,000 people were forced to go back to Poland. But Poland refused to receive them. So they were back and forth in the border, bad shape. Greenspan's family was there. And Herschel was feeling bad about what happened with his parents. And he decided the only way to solve this problem is to do something dramatic. So he went to the Berlin embassy. He requested to talk to some member of the embassy, and Ernest von Rath received him. And our beautiful Herschel shoot him 5 times and kill him. And then Goebbels took advantage of this and organized the Crystal Night. Destroy all the synagogues and send all the Jewish to the camps. Interestingly, New York Times, next day, present information about it and present Goebbels halt the attacks. So Goebbels was in charge of organizing the riots and Goebbels was in charge of stopping the riots. That's national systems. Okay? That is, for me, that's why in some cases we need something bigger than national states. Because in this case, Germany fired these people using national sovereignty. Poland rejected them. Then a teenager decided to do something to create some commotion and to stop this. But then Goebbels was in charge of both the riots and the stopping the riots. And what diplomats do? Diplomats just can do nothing. Because diplomats can say, no, don't do that, but they have nothing between impotence or war. That Ukraine today is same. Diplomats can talk, but it's nothing between impotence or war. And that's why we are aiming for something else. So I will chop this, okay. Then the first time the international community make individuals accountable was at Nuremberg. And Robert Jackson was the first prosecutor, and he explained the idea that international, maybe I can show you that. I have a nice video.
The chief prosecutor for the United States of America.
The privilege.
Okay,
Sorry.
so it's gone. Eh?
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yes, it's okay, don't worry. So you meet the chief prosecutor. I will show, I have another one, no problem. So Jackson was the first prosecutor in the first trial, and Jackson was talking about the need to do something to avoid repetition. And that was the line I was trying to present. This is not something moral. It's not about having nice ideas. It's about to avoid repetition. That's why it's so crucial. It's not that we are nice. It's we're trying to protect ourselves and our kids. After the first Nuremberg trial, as you know, there were 12 other trials. I like to present Ben Ferencz when he was 26. And
I became the chief prosecutor for the United States in what was certainly the biggest murder trial in human history.
We ask this court
26.
to affirm by international penal action man's right to live in peace and dignity, regardless of his race or creed. The case we present is a plea of humanity to law.
Where did Group D operate? Gruppe D operierte in der südlichen Ukraine. Do you know how many persons were liquidated by Einsatz Group D an der Insurrection? Von Juli 1941 bis Juni 1942 sind von den Einsatzkommandos etwa 90.000 als liquidiert gemeldet worden.
Okay. That's one way to present to you the need to do justice, to present what happened before and how to solve it. Let me present a different way. Forensic. It's a graph developed by Professor Steven Pinker showing the killings during the 20th century. The two peaks are the two wars. So war is dangerous. We need to do something to stop it. The problem is there were not many ideas because after the Second World War were the Cold War. And the Cold War stopped the international efforts to do some institutions. That's why Argentina trials became relevant, because Argentina was one of the first national cases where where top leaders were prosecuted. It's a book from Katyn-seeking Justice Cascade, mentioning the Argentinian trials and Nuremberg were the two events that create this idea that individuals should be responsible, that today look normal, 20 years ago was inexistent. Okay, I will not, okay. Just.
I think the Junta trial was the first time when I had to face people who was against me. The lead in my country was in favor of the military dictatorship, so I had to face my family.
This is General Videla. When he was little
La
younger.
ferocidad y
The
la
same guy
mentira
in the court.
son las dos notas del sistema de represión. Por eso hoy se hace necesario averiguar la verdad y juzgar a todos los que hayan violado la ley, en particular a los poderosos, a los máximos responsables.
So, and this will be my last point today. One, how to present the idea that we are building a new concept, the idea that the world will protect people. So what I did was to invite the only prosecutor from Nuremberg who was still alive to work with me and to do the closing arguments in my first trial. Let me show him.
Forensis sworn in as an honorary prosecutor of the ICC.
They didn't give me much room for a signature.
Mr. Ferenc, you're part of this office now. We are honored, we are really honored to have you as well as special counsel.
We use a swap.
Mr. Forensic?
May it please your honors, this is a historic moment. I am now in my 92nd year, having spent a lifetime striving for a more humane world governed by the rule of law. I am honored to represent the prosecutor regarding the significance of this trial. In Rome, over 100 sovereign states decided that child recruitment were, and I'm quoting now from the statute, among the most serious crimes of concern for the international community as a whole. Vengeance begets vengeance. Seizing and training young people to hate and kill undermines the legal and moral firmament of human society. Let the voice and the verdict of this esteemed global court now speak for the awakened conscience of the world. Thank you.
So it was my attempt, not forensic, but it was using a real person to show the connection, between Nuremberg and transforming Nuremberg into a permanent institution. And it's there, it's working. In Libya, we had a critical role. In Syria, we had no role, showing the world is not yet organized. And that is, for me, the question to you. How we can present this idea better? How we can use forensic to present this idea better to people? Of course, also, I would like to have better forensic for judges, but I feel the biggest challenge is to reach people. I was representing 2.4 billion citizens in the world because I was representing 122 countries. So this is a map. In blue are the countries who are members of the treaty. So 2.4 billion people live in those blue countries. So I was representing them. How to reach them? And of course, there are people in the US, in many other countries who are also interested. How to reach all of them? That's the real tension. How you can feel, just in the same way you feel, okay, Germany is your country, but you have Bavaria, but also you have European Union, and now also you have ICC protecting you. That is the idea we need to develop and explain. And that's why I'm here, trying to learn how to do it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to break with the order of questions given your remarks and what you just ended up with, because I think one of the questions I had prepared sort of leads right on from what you just proposed to us, which is to think about how to make, how we could represent the idea of a permanent international criminal court more appealing. So, with regard to the particular prosecutions that have been pursued, which have focused entirely on mass crimes committed in Africa, a lot of people, a lot of critical international lawyers and a lot of others have critiqued this, have been quite critical of this particular focus of the ICC in its prosecutorial gaze. And when I just think about it, putting my sort of legal self aside, I think it would be, the court would have much more legitimacy, in a sense, if there were the possibility of having American politicians, British politicians held accountable for the crimes against humanity that they've perpetuated in many different places. So I guess I want to ask how you mediated these kinds of criticisms while you were at the ICC, and what your views are of this kind of criticism in your sort of life after the ICC.
You see, U.S. is a white or blue country?
Yes.
It's white.
Yes.
So could I investigate the U.S.? No.
No, yes, but this
So I cannot expand my jurisdiction. So the rules are, I have to investigate genocide, crimes against humanity, or war crimes. There are not many countries in the world with that. In South America, just Colombia. That's it. In Europe, nothing. And then you have Burma. You have many countries which also are not members, as you see. So at the end, Colombia was a possibility. But in Colombia, they are doing national proceedings themselves. Mm-hmm. And the rules say I should not intervene when the national authorities are doing the cases. So what I did was exactly by the book. And no one challenged that my cases are the real cases. And for me, it was incredible that this idea goes so up. Because the first time someone talked about this was when I prosecuted President Bashir from Sudan for genocide in Darfur. And someone shocking to me, someone said, look, the chairman of the African Union met with Ban Ki-moon, and he was talking about the African bias of the court. And Ban Ki-moon said, come on, it's about genocide in Darfur. So it was obviously a stupid question. 4 years later, no one asked me about genocide in Darfur. No one. So what happened? My question is to you. What happened that lawyers and journalists are talking about that and ignoring genocide in Darfur?
Yeah, okay. I mean, the question, let me try and reformulate the question. So the question isn't meant to challenge the basis upon which these prosecutions have been taken at all. Of course, there's no point in trying to make a sort of a criticism of that. But what would it take? Let me just pose it in a more hypothetical sense. What do you think it would take to have the U.S., or indeed if we think about the crimes that were committed during Operation Cast Lead, what would it take to have the court have a wider jurisdiction?
You know who can give me the case? The Security Council. The Security Council can give me any case in the world. If not, criticizing me because I did not prosecute Bush is like criticizing the German prosecutors because they were not. And it's the same, we have no jurisdiction there. So, let me show something. I have something for you. Let me explain the Bashir case. This. Right there. So, we prosecuted Bashir in Darfur because he was using his people, in particular Mr. Hussein, who was the Minister of Interior, and Harun, to attack the 3 tribes, Fur, Masret, and Sagagwa, who were challenging his authority. Harun, when he started his work as a Minister of the Interior, Deputy Minister of Interior, went to Darfur, and the Darfur were telling him, we're very pleased you came because we are receiving attacks. Our tribe is under attack. We need your protection. And Harun was pretty honest with them. Harun told them, you don't understand. You are the enemy. I will destroy you. So that's why the ICC should be there. Because the national authorities are those who are killing these people. Imagine if someone killed your husband and you go to the police and the police officer says yes, and tomorrow will kill someone else in your family. What you will do? That's the situation. And that's what happened, and that's why we investigate Bashir. Mm-hmm. And Bashir, instead to start with the idea, is an African bias. And then people discuss African bias. And incredible, Bashir, in fact what happened was that the global leaders were using our arrest warrant to put pressure on Bashir to make independence on the south. It was a trade-off. They ignored Darfur to protect the south. And as a consequence now, what will happen is Bashir is bombing people in the south and killing them in the same way he did in Darfur. Let me present who are now killing people in the south. Hussein, who was before. You say Hussein there, in Darfur, Hussein here. Harun, governor of Kordofan. In the past, Harun was first the Minister for the Interior, Deputy Minister of the Interior, attacking people in the village. They surround the village, they kill, they rape, they force to camps 2.5 million people. Then, when they were there, the idea they would die by starvation. But international groups were helping them to keep alive. Bashir appointed one person to be the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Who? Harun, the same guy who was killing them as the Minister of the Interior. And then Harun is now the governor of South Kordofan. And the most appealing thing for me is, so this idea that it's an African bias was started by President Bashir when he was indicted. Look what he said.
توجيه الآن إحنا ما عايزين أي حشرة ما عايزين أي حشرة في النيل الأزرق ما عايزين أي حشرة في جبال النوبة عايزين إن شاء الله قبل بداية الخريف عبد الرحيم يدينا التمام أنه أرض السودان.
This is Harun. This is Hussein. This one is Hussein. So, I suppose you know the famous speech of Hitler and the vermin. You know it?
Yes.
You saw it?
All scenes of Nazi activity in this film are from authentic German newsreel and official sources. All statements in English from German speeches are faithful translations.
Thomas Jefferson, have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man.
Man kann nicht dem untreu werden, was einem ganzen Leben Inhalt, Sinn und Zweck gegeben hat.
If I, Adolf Hitler, can send the flower of the German nation into the hell of war without the smallest pity for spilling precious German blood, then surely I have the right to remove millions of an inferior race that breeds like vermin.
So that's my answer to you. How can I ignore Bashir is indicted for genocide? He's using exactly the same words, and we are talking about something else. My feeling is the reason we are talking about something else is because we are impotent, because we can do nothing to protect these people in Darfur. And we don't like to feel that. We don't like to feel impotent. We don't like to feel we are not managing this world. But that's the truth. So I should not make any excuse of my cases. My cases are legally the right cases, and in fact, we should focus on them, not someone else.
Okay. I'm going to move to a different topic.
But can you help me on that?
But we can come back to that.
I like to, okay. I like help on that. How we can, because what's happening with her is all the time what happened to me. People ask me, why are you in Africa? And the reason I am in Africa because I should be in Africa. The court has to be in Africa because the crimes are many crimes in Africa.
Yes, but the critique isn't, as I tried to state when I followed up and reformulated the question, isn't a criticism of the prosecutions that you took on. The criticism is of the structure of the court. So you have the US playing quite a crucial role in the construction of the ICC, but
I like now. Now it's more alive conversation. Go.
But not being held accountable to the ICC. It's a structural critique of how the ICC is set up. So it's not a personal criticism. At least that's not what my intention in the question was.
No, it's okay.
So I think that when you ask how the court can be better sort of represented, or how more people can have faith in it, we could look at a number of countries who are white, in the white, and who are, not subject to the court's jurisdiction. Now, for the court to have more legitimacy, I think I'm suggesting, along with many others, that the jurisdiction of the court needs to be far more expansive. So,
but then go to the countries who are not members, not the ICC, because on the contrary, because Baltasar Garzón is here. He was the same year the court was created. He was doing the first huge universal jurisdiction case against Pinochet. And these are two ways to have a global order. One, national judges jumping cases outside the country, or the global system. The global system requires that the national states sign the treaty. That's the way to do it. So Germany is there because Germany decided. France changed the constitution to do it. So that's the way to do it. The fact that the big countries are not there is showing how important is the new system. Because the smaller countries are leading here. It's not US. This is the first global institution where US is not leading. This is led by the small countries. And it's exactly the way the law should be. The law is to protect the weak people. If you are the big one, you don't need the law, you're big. If you're a small one, you need the law. And that's why it's a perfect idea. We have small countries using the law to protect themselves. And of course, there are double standards. Yes, exactly, it's double standard. It's formal double standard. But the issue is how to move the other countries, not to criticize the SEC. That is a complete wrong focus.
Okay.
So you agree?
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, but I want to change tact. No, I'm going to, and to try and draw the conversation back to questions of forensic.
This is forensic. This is forensic.
In many accounts of the trials of the junta and the process of democratization which led up to the prosecutions, people have emphasized the importance of the public participation and civil society participation in the gathering of evidence to prove the mass killings and disappearances. And some people have argued that the participation of individuals, human rights organizations, and the broad lay membership of the National Commission on Disappeared Persons helped to produce a shared historical narrative of what happened, and that, in fact, this was one of the most important functions of the trial. So I wanted to ask you to reflect on the importance of public involvement in the creation of shared historical narratives or truth with any of the cases that you've been involved with, indeed the trials of the junta or in your time at the ICC, and also if you could sort of reflect on how the shift to forms of evidence that require high levels of technological expertise are impacting on the way in which the public or civil society can participate in the process of gathering evidence at the investigation stage.
Okay. Let me, two aspects. One, the importance for the victims to provide testimony. But the second topic is the one you mentioned, and he mentioned, the dream to have a case where we don't need to expose a victim, because in fact, each witness we present is an incredible work, it's a lot of work to protect the person, but also for them. It's funny, people, one of the remorse I have about my work at the ICC is when I present the case against Harun, the first indictee in Darfur, we had like 100 witnesses. And because I have the duty to protect them, when I present my case, I remove them from where they were living and moved to a different place. And then we had no idea. All this community had no more teachers, because these people were the more literate and they were teaching. And then all the community lost the teachers. And probably I ruined the life of these people because they were in remote places, long distance from their families, so very bad situation. So it's difficult. On the other hand, for the witness, it's a crucial experience. I remember two stories. One is one girl in Uganda. For 3 days, she was interviewed about rapes she was suffering and her life with Joseph Kony. And when my investigators told her, okay, we finish, the girl started to cry and cry and cry and cry. My investigator would feel very bad and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but I had to do these questions. And the girl said, don't worry, I'm not crying because I'm sad. On the contrary, this is the happiest day in my life. No one paid to me so much attention as you did. And in Darfur, living in Chad, in a refugee camp, we interviewed a man who, when we arrived, said, I knew you will come one day. I was waiting for this day. And then he told us his story, how the Sudanese government's troops were surrounding his village, destroying everything, burning, but then he said, they raped my wife and my daughters. And they forced me to watch while they were raping my 8-year-old daughter. And I was saying to them, why? Why are you doing this to me? And after this awful story, the guy said, now I can die. I did what I had to do. So this is what happened when you interview these people, because basically you empower them. You transform their awful stories into evidence. And with this evidence, you prosecute top people. At the same time, yes, one of the reasons I came to this conference is to discuss with you how we can help the prosecutor of the ICC to present different type of evidence, to reduce the number of witnesses, and also to provide, interestingly, judges in Western countries are used to some more certainty. You have a blood test, you have a different type of evidence. It's very difficult to get this evidence in these cases. So we need to invent new ways. But just to be clear on this, because this is the reason I came, one of the reasons I came is to the technical people. What we need to do is not to prove individual cases. That is normally easy. There are so many crimes that it's easy to get witness of rapes and killings. The difficulty is to connect Gaddafi with the killings. That is normally the difficult connection. So what we need more is visual help to assist in this connection, and that will be good to show to the judges.
Okay, thank you. Now, sort of following on from that, I want to ask you a question about the growing importance of the material witness that has been discussed throughout the conference so far, and that Susan spoke about a little bit earlier when we were doing the tour of the exhibition. I want to ask, and now you might tell me that I'm being parochial and having in mind
no, don't be defensive.
Anglo-American forms of evidence. No, but I want
She's traumatized by me.
Not yet. I want to ask how the increasing importance and emphasis put on forensic forms of evidence is impacting the relevance, or let's say the probative weight given to oral testimony. I mean, this is something that Michael Svard also mentioned earlier in the conversation. I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, that was my life. Look, we had a previous discussion about the rules of evidence, and in fact, in the British system, it's a very sophisticated model. But in the ICC, it's a pretty free model. But what happened in reality is judges use their own national criteria to manage this.
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, the best example is in the second case, in the Katanga and Gujolo case, we had 3 judges from civil law countries, France, Belgium, and Benin. And in civil law countries, you have a lot of documents. And documents, even they are fake sometimes, they give you certainty. It's a document with a public officer saying this happened. And of course, in the Congo case, there were 2 militias from 2 different tribes fighting each other. There was 0 document. And we based on witness, basically. But of course, first, our witness were from a remote area of Congo. For the first time, for them was before a court in a Western country was this time. And also the defense present a lot of witness saying the contrary, the opposite. And the judges feel uneasy with this. They don't like that. Because then in the US, it would be easy for the judges to decide, okay, I don't believe this witness, I believe this witness. Not in the civil law countries. They don't like that. So that ended acquitting one of the 2 guys. And that was the incredible, it's in appeal now, we'll see what happened. But that's why I believe, okay, it's interesting because we're thinking, because the rules were open, the judges will use their judgment to understand when the witness were saying the truth, and we were sure our witness were the truth. But some judges feel different.
So is there any sort of uniformity that has been created?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, not the point. No, we're working on that. So it will take time.
And so that's a good example of the difference in legal cultures that you were speaking about, I think, at the beginning. And this...
Yeah, but I believe it's also, the cases are different, because you are presenting cases who happen in a remote area. I remember when we explained to one of the judges how difficult for us was to conduct confidential interviews, because these people live together. So, to protect our witness, we had to do a lot of different things to invent stories to no one know that we were there. And the judges officially said to us, you have to go to bigger cities. There are no bigger cities in DRC Congo, East Congo. So we were in the biggest city worth a few thousands, and that's it. So it's not just about legal traditions, it's about completely different reality. And probably, that's why for me, when I was thinking your type of simulations, would be great to have some material to show them, okay, this is the city, and there are 3 houses. And this is the road, and there's no road. and that shows the judge's reality. And also transform that be closer to them. We try, probably we fail, and we have to do better.
Okay, I'm going to just ask one more question, if that's all right. Okay. So the new ICC building that is currently being constructed is reportedly, in the words of the architect, meant to convey eminence and authority, as well as trust and hope. One critical international law scholar, Tor Creever, notes that this reflects the growth of the ICC in size, as well as prominence, as well as funding. This huge glass structure will be transparent, very modern, and is intended to be both functional and cost efficient, as the website says. Do any of these descriptions of the new building, of the architectural construction of the permanent ICC, resonate with your views on the future direction of the court?
Wow. Okay, I had no problem with hopes. And what more?
Trust.
Trust, perfect. What else?
Eminence.
Eminence is great.
And authority.
Authority, fantastic.
You're not going to disagree with any of that.
No, why?
So.
Are you against some of them?
No, of course not, of course not. But can you comment on sort of, I guess, in addition to what we've already discussed, are there any other difficulties or challenges that lie in the court's future that you would like to set out?
Everything is an obstacle. This is impossible. Look, when I was appointed chief prosecutor, I was teaching at Harvard. And one of my colleagues told me, Luis, it's a great honor to be the prosecutor, but you have to refuse it. You have to resign. You have to refuse it. I say, why? Because it would be a shame for you. Because you will be 9 years in The Hague doing nothing and receiving a salary. He said, without the US, how you can conduct investigation? How can arrest people? So this was the perception 10 years ago. And now we are reality. And of course, as a reality, we face all the dreamers. It's like when you are, I don't know, people dating by internet, when they met the person, they say, oh, it's smaller, it smells bad, I don't like the clothes, so all the problems. That's the difference between a dream and a reality. But I feel it's great that we have this reality. And it's a huge step forward.
I think that's a great note on which to open up to the audience.
You like that? Okay.